Hello, good morning. Welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your questions 7 days a week. Alexander, let's jump into the first question. Can't hear you, Alexander.
John Foltz in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania. I'm testing NDI Bridge, but it requires port forwarding. My pipeline is a cable modem from the ISP to a Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro. Do I really want to do that on a home network? Are there other options?
Guy, kick us off.
Yeah, that's a good question. With NDI Bridge, the host has to open up the port. It's generally 5990, and with that port open, then you can go ahead and allow people in. You can limit in the Ubiquiti Dream Machine Pro where that allow is coming from. So you can go in there and granularly say only this IP can go ahead and transmit or receive through those ports. So if you're really afraid of it, just go into the security settings when you set up your port forwarding, and then just say limit, and that will knock that off. But yeah, so here's what it would look like. So a host here is on the left, joiner's on the right, and basically once that host opens up that port, you'll see a little. If it's not open, you won't be able to even start the bridge. There'll be a little triangle that says, no, you can't do that. But yeah, once you've got these two set up, you have your host on your left, you have your joiner on your right, and you can pull up Studio Monitor. You can see all your feeds, and it's pretty simple. It's basically just hitting start. That's it, and then join on the other side.
Jonas?
There's a couple things to consider in this case. You're saying you want to test it. I generally think if you can play around and test with things at home, that's not the worst idea. But keep in mind that if you want to use this for a production, you want to have as much control over the network as possible. And also you want to have metering points. You didn't talk about what your use case for NDI Bridge is, if it is like bridging to a remote site or transcoding feeds. Or receiving feeds. Depending on that use case, it might be easier for you to set up a port forward on the remote end. The good news is with the bridge, it doesn't matter which direction you're pulling feeds. Host can be your remote end that you're pulling it from, or it can also be your local end. So that is one of the good things with it. Another thing to keep in mind is you're probably double netted, or you have two firewalls in this case. So what I would do is go into your cable modem, make sure that you enable the port forwarding there, enter the IP address of your Dream Machine, and then do the port forwarding in the Dream Machine as well. Alternatively, you could also do it in the cloud just to make sure that it works and monitor it there. But one thing to keep in mind is if you have the host in the cloud, and you're sending it all through there, NDI Bridge works in a way where all the feeds get sent to the host and then distributed from there, and they don't do multiplying of feeds there. So if you pull the feed 4 times, you're going to pay the egress fee in AWS 4 times there.
Next question.
Eduardo Augustine in Panama City, which standing desk would you recommend starting a new office? Best cost-effective up and down desk?
Let's go right back to Jonas.
One thing to keep in mind with standing desks is a cheap standing desk is just a waste of money because you will use it 5 times and then never again. I have a Flexi Spot desk. I'm pretty happy with it. Keep in mind most typical office standing desks don't plan for you to have a lot of equipment on them. So look at the weight ratings for them as well. I had one where you had to manually crank it up. I used it maybe a couple times. Now that I have an electric one where I can just hit something and everything moves, I use it far more often, and you can use it just for a couple things. Keep in mind to also budget for brackets or cables and some cable tying to be able to tidy it up when it moves up and down, because you don't want every time you pull up your desk that your screens get yanked off your desk.
Courtney?
Well, they normally go, the good ones go for around 350 or so. If you want a budget desk, like Jonas said, it may not last as long. Walmart has these that are available for like $90, and from 90 to 110, depending upon the size, up to 63 by 24, and this one's, I think, 40 by 24. So they range in different prices and different sizes. They're electric. They have presets you can set them to. They're fairly nice. They show them holding a bunch of weights on them. I don't know how accurate that is and how long they're going to last. At that price, probably not too long. But at that price, you can afford to get another one and maybe upgrade to a bigger one when the smaller one breaks down a little bit.
Jason?
Yeah, the thing with cheap standing desks is that the desktop top is always the cheapest part. Reinforce the living daylights out of that before you put the equipment on it. My rule is if you're using something that costs a lot less to support the thing that's on top of it, just be prepared to get in trouble.
Another thing that's super handy is that you can actually grab just the frame and the motor at the bottom part and make sure that you're getting the right weight rating, and then go ahead and buy a separate desktop that is solid wood or is good, is made out of good stuff. If you buy the cheap stuff and you overload what the weight's supposed to be, you'll find that it's not just going to break, but it'll start to drift. When I when I first was on office hours, I had my camera mounted to my desk and I was standing up. And then about 15 minutes into the show, my headroom started going further and further and further and further away. And I would be fighting it the rest of the time because whatever the hydraulic fluid or the hydraulic pressure that was in that thing just kept slowly going down. So make sure that you're looking at the weight ratings. Again, use your regular rule of thumb. If you think you're going to need to put 100 pounds on the desk or 150 pounds on the desk, get a desk that's rated for $300. And one more thing, watch, and this is general desk advice, don't buy the beveled desk. A lot of the standing desks, because you're standing and moving up and down, don't want to have a hard edge on the bottom, so they'll have that little bevel. If they have the bevel, then all of a sudden all of your desk-mounted C-clamps won't work without some extra reinforcement, so I would check that out. No bevels. Next question.
Paul Valkus in Austin, Texas. These are the top 50 podcasts. Which ones have the best production values?
Alex Lindsay.
This American Life. That's the one. Just listen to This American Life and take notes. It's not a discussion like the one that we're doing here, but it is the highest. It's been the highest quality production of a. Now it's got a budget that's at a much different level than everybody else, I think. But I think the video quality, some of the Wonderly ones are also very good. We've seen some folks talk about them here where they're doing 5.1 mixes or Atmos mixes of podcasts. But the one that is consistently every week better than everything else is This American Life.
Courtney?
I'll concur with This American Life, and Radio Lab would be my second choice from.
I agree. Yeah, that's
radio.
good.
Jason?
Tangentially, NPR, I think on Apple Books, has this really great just podcasting recording guide that just covers a bunch of stuff. Really great reference.
And Alex, go ahead.
Yeah, and the only thing I'll say about NPR is that they use Neumann mics and they don't properly diffuse their rooms. And I can hear the reverb in every NPR broadcast, and it makes me just a little crazy. It's kind of like, come on. I mean, like, you're doing this every day. Like, can't you put a little more money into the room? I mean, because they're nice mics, obviously, but it just feels like there's the two things that bother me about NPR are the little bit of reverb that sits in almost every one of their rooms, number one, and it feels like they're in like a cubicle, like instead of an actual studio. And then the second thing is that oftentimes they turn the IFB, the headphones up so high that you can hear the other person going through, because the Neumanns are so expensive. I mean, so sensitive. You can hear the other person coming through. So that's why I would probably not put them in the best produced podcasts, even though they do it all the time and I listen to them all the time. It's always, I literally think about that almost every day. I turn it on and I go, oh, really? Are they ever going to fix that? So anyway.
Jason?
I agree with all of that, and that doesn't mean that the guide isn't a good guide.
Yeah,
they're just not following it very well. It also drives me crazy when you can hear them pushing their playback. Oh,
yeah.
Your questions and votes do drive the show, just a reminder. So you can use Makana to chat, ask questions, vote on the questions. And if you're not in Makana, just head over to officehours.global/join. Sign up there. You'll get links to Makana, Discord, and more. Be on the inside track. Next question.
Graham Cardwell in Belfast, Northern Ireland. I'm building a video archive on YouTube with a number of videos on a number of subjects. I've built playlists around the subjects and have a Google Sheet with links as the front end. What could I do to make it prettier, e.g. with images and links?
Jonas?
I think this is a great example of something where you could use ChatGPT or Claude to just ask you, hey, here's an Excel sheet. Here's some pictures. Can you make me a nice looking directory website? I'm sure you're gonna like spend an hour or two with it. You're gonna learn a lot about the code that it's writing. Ask it to do plain HTML and stock JavaScript. Otherwise, it's gonna use React or Vue.js or one of the frameworks, and there's gonna be a lot more work. And then this way you have a simple HTML website, and with Claude, you can even just say publish it. You won't get the domain that you want, but now you have a nice looking front end for that list.
Next question.
From the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois. Jonas, we missed you on Wednesday. What are your views on setting up and using the audio tools in vMix? How about the best VSTs or other plugins for this, and how do you use them?
Jonas?
We try to fix it at the source most of the time. So the first step is, like always, we do a lot of virtual production. So we want to make sure that people are on the proper mics, they wear headphones. So most of the time we are in a situation where we don't have to fix a lot of audio. And I'm somehow worst in audio, but I'm a firm believer if you don't know that what you're doing makes it better, leave it off. Because I've seen way too many people try to fix something with a compressor or an EQ in vMix, and it just makes it worse. So make sure that any processing that you're doing is actually making it better. That being said, we are using a lot of the Waves plugins. It got a little more difficult to use those in the cloud. You need to add a special drive for them. But generally speaking, they've been pretty solid. Outside of that, I don't really tend to use VST plugins in vMix. One of the reasons is that way you now have the TD and an audio person and sometimes even an engineer all fighting over the same machine. So as soon as we actually want to use a TD, I would use another software. CloudMX by Waves, for example, could be an option. Pull all the audio out and then deal with it externally.
Next question.
Another QR code question from Chuck Hodges in Tuolumne, California. Great to hear more about Spacecoms. When will it be released, and what will the office hours discount for it be being developed as part of its connections and testing here?
If only we knew someone who could think. Oh wait, Jonas.
The good news is you can already use it right now if you head over to spacecoms.io. You can register, create yourself an account, give it a play. We are working on a more like public release. That being said, most of the work right now is UI and admin work and boring stuff like making the billing more solid, which is really important for us, but not really important for your productions. So while we're working through that, we've been working on the Zoom app that we're about to release with the big release as well. So there's a lot of things just waiting for us to announce it, but it's totally usable right now. We've done tests across continents multiple times, Europe, Africa, US, just works, which is kind of the goal of it. That being said, yeah, Office Hours is using it on Sundays, and we'll see how that goes continuously.
What's the URL again, Jonas?
Spacecoms.io, and it's comms with a C at the end. I'll put it in chat.
Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I've been using Sequoia 15.1 on my work laptop for very basic video editing and audio capture, plus everyday work in office and web browsing. Is anyone else using this in a non-production capacity?
Alex?
I would say non-production capacity, but I have a couple of my Mac Minis have been. What I tend to do is I tend to start taking slow additions to the hardware and adding them, and seeing how they do and seeing if there's any anomalies. And so I broke a couple things. I think I broke Dante and a couple other things when I put it onto the first Mac Mini. But I've added it to two Mac Minis. Kind of same thing. I'm using them for small things. Not trying to turn it. I'm not making my main computer Sequoia. Probably won't for a while. Probably a solid 6 more months. But the other computers, it is breaking a bunch of little subsystems that I have. so I would say that if you're doing anything complicated with audio, you can't update. But if you're just using the Apple, if you're using Final Cut or you're using things that don't have to interact with each other, I think it seems to be working fine.
Guy?
Yeah, I'm playing with it on the M4 little Mac Mini with 16 gigs. I'm kind of regretting buying the 256 though, because I'm completely maxed out and it's having to struggle. So I should have got the 512. I'm going to play with Final Cut. So that's one of the reasons to get one of these machines, is have just an isolated playground where you can go in there and go blow stuff up. Like here, I'm playing with the automated captioning, and it's pretty dang cool, and it's fast when it's working. I was surprised at how quickly it was able to generate all of these captions. So other apps, I'm also putting NDI, or I put a 10 gig Thunderbolt switch on it, and if I ran speed test right now, it's pulling almost 8,500 megabits per second through that Thunderbolt. So that's the other thing I didn't get, is the built-in 10 gigs. I had to add a $300 Thunderbolt adapter. So it depends on what you want to do as to how you load these things up too. But yeah, I'd suggest getting an M4 to play with at Mac Mini at $599, or get the 512 and jump up whatever that extra cost is.
Quick aside, I think we have a show and tell. Can we see that? I haven't seen one for scale. I've only seen pictures.
Oh, I knew you were going to break down.
Scale.
I knew it.
Scale. We actually got this one for work. I may have to buy many of these next year. So hundreds of them. So I bought it to test it. We're going to actually test it against for what we're doing. We're going to get a Jetson as well to do some testing on it and compare like usability and power and all kinds of other things compared to it. But I don't have like a floating other Mac Mini to show you, but this is what it looks like. It's a very compact.
It looks like a little Mac Studio that they shrunk.
5 by 5 by 2.
Yeah, I do think that I think that the reason that it's higher is because of the fan structure. I think that's why they made it. I think that's what it's. That's why it's that way. But yeah,
I thought it was interesting the other day. You were talking about mounting them sideways in a shelf, and I was like, oh, that's just an excuse to buy 8 packs of them.
Yes, exactly. I mean, I have five on my desk, and so I'm not very far away from adding a couple more to just have, just to go across. So it's not that far out of the puzzle. So like one of the things that I'm playing with is there's Softron makes a web viewer that basically lets you have up to 4 SDI outputs with just different web pages, and they can be HTML5, they can be everything, And so I'm looking at having that be one of the Mac Minis can be putting out key fills and of graphics and everything else, as well as then having other ones just being able to put out the web pages, and so that just adds another level of interactivity to a home show, like a little home home studio. So,
Riyadh?
Hey Alex. So do you think those are really good for like fly packs?
Like here's the thing is that it depends on what you're using them for. I mean, I think that this could be the problem that we haven't seen is who's going to build, like the thing about the current ones is they fit into a 1U really nicely. And so we have the current ones in lots of fly packs. I don't know. I have a bunch of them. I know probably has 15 or 20 of them. And we put them into 1Us. We have 2 Mac Minis in a 1U that just slide into the fly packs. And we use those all the time for comms, for scopes, for like playback. Like there's all kinds of things that they're used for, and they work really, really well in a fly pack. I don't know, like I just haven't figured out how we're going to package these into a fly pack. That's the problem, is that they, up 8 all the way across, you'll fit into a 3U. You can kind of fit 3 of these across in a 2U, but it's not comfortable. Like there's a lot of space in it, so they definitely did not take into account that a lot of us are putting these in. I mean, I'm sure that we're an edge case for Mac Minis, but they definitely didn't take into account that we were putting these into racks when they built it, because it doesn't. I'd rather have it be higher and just if it was 4x4x3, then we could put 4 across into a 2U and we'd be super happy. It's just a little, the form factor is a little off for what we normally use them for. So it depends.
And can I see the base for 1 second?
There's the illustrious power, which we talked about.
What a non-story.
Well, I mean, the big thing is that because all my computers are set to restart, all my desktop computers are set to restart when they lose power. We were talking about this, I think, yesterday. I've maybe turned mine off a couple times in 2 years, like maybe twice in 2 years, so that I've actually touched the power button. It's just not something that I do very often. So,
Chris, we're going to need you to make us a 2U maker. So it says sequel to the tall maker. It's just going to be a little stand,
a wooden
one.
rack mount.
Wooden rack mount.
Have you guys seen somebody built they 3D printed a little cradle to hold the thing so that when you slap down on the top of it, it hits the power. So the whole thing is a power button.
I just love that everyone's gone so deep into this.
I think that Apple
thing.
does this on purpose so that we're talking about it. They live in your brain rent free forever with all their bad designs.
Go ahead, Jason.
One more thought on the Mac Mini. It occurred to me that if you go one step up in any increment, it actually costs. So the one step up costs as much as buying a second base level Mac Mini. So just keep that in mind if you're buying more than one of them.
I got the very base one because of what I'm using it for. It's kind of like a Mac based NUC for me, so I don't need it to have any. I really don't need anything for it. So I have the very base. I think the two big values are the base unit and the beefed up version that's pretty much knocked out. And to me, pick between one of those two. So those are the ones that I would look at there. Well, what's that? Is that
a short maker?
It's like Chris has got something there. This is the tall maker, but it's a very small tall maker. It's kind of like we lost
the size of the.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm back. It's a short maker. I made it as a monitor stand at the beginning of the COVID, and then I put everything on racks.
See that? That's
Baltic
coming
Bridge,
soon.
Baby.
To a Mac Mini rack near you.
That's what I use my Mac Mini for, a monitor stand.
If you'd like to help out here at Office Hours, we do have volunteer opportunities, and if you'd like to find out more, we do have our new volunteer meeting. That's going to be this Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. So check out Discord for links to that. That's the new volunteer meeting this Saturday. Next question.
Andy Kokender from Vieira, Florida. Log-Encoded HEVC video now possible with Final Cut Camera 1.1 mobile app. Thoughts?
Alex?
Sure. So here's the thing about the HEVC. What that gives you is 10-bit. So now you can have, you're going to have HEVC compressed. It's going to be 10-bit. But as soon as I start doing log, I'm just going to record in ProRes. It doesn't really, I guess you'll save memory on your phone if you record it. But when I record log, it means that I'm going to do something professional with it. And if I'm going to do something professional with it, I'm just going to record in ProRes. I'm not going to record in a compressed format. I view HEVC as a delivery format, not a mezzanine format or a source format. And I probably wouldn't use it. I think it's great that they've added it. I think some people will use it because they're shooting a ton of footage and they want it to be portable but you're compressing all your footage. And if you have really complex footage, like complex water, complex trees, grass, all those things, HEVC is not going to keep up with that in the same way that ProRes will. So you have a great sensor. You should take advantage of it. I've shot a lot of ProRes with my phone, and it's as good as a camera with that lens size and everything else. When you shoot ProRes, it is incredible footage that comes out of that camera. But I wouldn't, HEVC does break down with heavy detail, especially when all that detail is moving. Go out, take it out with HEVC and find a forest that you get kind of above and let things wave back and forth in the wind. Take some video of it and then zoom in on it. And you'll just see this kind of weird little design going on in the leaves that is HEVC. So I wouldn't, if I'm going to use it for production, I would immediately switch to ProRes.
Jason?
I have this pet theory that they added this purely because those who don't have the developer strap but for some reason want to edit in the Vision Pro in Final Cut, it just absolutely wrecks it. But the minute you plug that little strap in, it is awesome.
Rian?
Hey, quick question, Alex. Is there like a nice listing of codecs that would do what you were saying, like production codecs, and then a nice listing of?
There's a list. It's called ProRes. Like, I mean, like it's, so, for me, I record everything in ProRes HQ. Like that's what I record stuff in if it matters. Now, when we did corporate and we had when we do corporate and we have long records, I'll sometimes shift down to LT. But LT ProRes is still way better than HEVC. ProRes proxy is worthless. Like it is, it's you telling Apple that you just don't care about your footage. Like it's just a proxy is truly a proxy, and I think they do that on purpose to make sure you're not using it for a production because it's just garbage. And so LT is a reasonably good one for things that you don't have to do a lot of heavy color correction. 422 kind of lives in a world that I don't really. I mean, I just don't. It's kind of here nor there. So I either pick LT or HQ. And I don't usually go higher than HQ, for there are reasons to do it if you're doing green screen and so on and so forth. But generally, if it's a long form and I don't need to do a lot of color correction, it's ProRes LT. If I think I'm going to do color correction later, it's going to be HQ. Those are the ones that I kind of live in when I'm recording. But I'm not recording in compressed formats. Like those are delivery formats. It's like, it's like recording everything all your audio in AAC, or MP3, like that. I mean, that is what it is. Like it is a compressed format. So you're recording, okay, I want to do all my audio in MP3s or AAC rather than actually recording them in, WAV or AIF files, So I just think that it's not a production format. And if you're capturing stuff, I capture stuff that's lower resolution of my kids, and when we're having fun, I don't record my whole life in ProRes. But when I'm recording something that I'm going to use, then I record in ProRes. So that's the difference.
If you'd like a really deep dive, that's actually an entertaining read for a white paper. The Apple has a ProRes white paper that I put into chat that is actually really nice to look at and read in terms of here's what different resolutions are going to give you in terms of different performance, different data rates. Here's how the different types of compression work. So if you're trying to plan out the logistics of the data of what you're actually shooting, it's worth your time to give it a check it out. Give it a look. Next question.
Rian Smith in Trinidad, West Indies. Can 2, 3, or 4 PTZ optics 1080p PTZ type cameras be controlled and send video back to my workstation via NDI over Wi-Fi for smaller events like weddings and funerals and churches and small halls?
Jonas?
Well, if you don't care about it going wrong as soon as people walk in, I think that's a great solution. But I think you should just buy a bunch of Ethernet cables and run it that way. NDI over Wi-Fi and any production signal over Wi-Fi is a really bad idea. Like I always like to say, it's going to work on a great sunny day, but always prep for the rainy days. As soon as someone comes and who knows, maybe there's a photo station vendor who brings a really strong AP as well for whatever thing they're doing, and suddenly your Wi-Fi is having issues. I would never trust a Wi-Fi signal to send my NDI feeds to you. Control signals, in a pinch, you might be able to use that. Just put them on great presets and then leave it there. But I would just run a bunch of Ethernet cables. There's this really short, tiny ones. There's flat ones that you can run below doors. There's a lot of things you can do there to hide them, but I would not rely on Wi-Fi if it is anything that you're being paid for, because you don't. Sadly, clients don't care if you tell them, hey, sorry, the Wi-Fi environment here was different now than what we expected. They will still demand you to provide the product that they pay you for. And with Wi-Fi, you won't be able to give it to them on a consistent basis.
Rian?
I got you, dude. I got you, bro. The thought process was just to be able to have very quick setup. So maybe if not Wi-Fi, probably I'd have to get some Holylands and pull the video back that way. But you said, Jonas, control can be done via Wi-Fi, like to pan the cameras, that kind of thing.
In a pinch, to recall presets, sure.
Okay.
But like, I would just not use the camera, because like, what is gonna happen if you like cheap out on setup? And I know you want to set up fast and all that. Is you're gonna set it up, you're gonna get hit by a Wi-Fi blip or some blip twice on air with it. Your client is gonna be mad at you, and you're not gonna use the camera for the rest of the show. And then you're gonna have a trust issue with that camera and that connection for the rest of the show. So might as well not pack it. Then that's really the quickest setup. Like set 2 cameras in the back, get proper lenses to zoom in, do a couple static shots, and do it that way. I know that, for example, for a lot of the weddings and services in churches, there's almost always a center where people are static at. Just get a normal camera recorder, get a normal camera with a telelens, zoom in there, and now you have 80% of the show covered. Do a wide from the back, because what people want to feel is not only like see nice moving shots, they want to feel there. And often people like, they do all the close-ups, but they never show all the audience, which is, for a lot of people, they want to see, oh, look, he is there, there's there. Like when you'd want to try to transmit the feeling, I would do a wide from the back and then a close-up to, there's going to be a podium, there's going to be like a porch or something where people are going to stand. So do those 2 shots on the back, and then don't worry about setting up a bunch more things wirelessly, because you will never trust them after the first couple hiccups.
Alex?
Rian, how fast are you trying to set up?
Within an hour sometimes, because I've had the experience bringing in, like, there was a funeral and then there's another funeral, right? So you have 1 hour to set up in between. Typically, right now, I roll out Cat 6 with SDI cable. I have them like tied together. So I'll show some pictures later, right? But that's what I do. 150 feet from my desk, I can run to the cables, PoE to the camera. Sorry, but I was just wondering if it would be possible. What is another way to get it that I could just kind of come, tripod, connect, move on, next camera. Because the big issue is really not so much the setup, but the teardown to be able to go to another location. So like with weddings, after they finish, they're married, hooray, everything. I'm still there 45 minutes after packing away everything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, what we've seen most people do is use things like Teradek bolts for that. Like the Hollyland is another version of that. But when people want to be able to set up, I've worked in some of the partners that we've worked with in Africa have the same problem that you have, which is they have a very short landing time, and so they've been using at the time Hollylands didn't exist, so it was bolts, and they'd have the bolts there, and they would do exactly what you're talking about. Or they have a battery pack there that's going to power both the camera and the bolt. They're going to throw that in, and it is pretty fast. Most of the time, those wireless are not going to be contested. Wi-Fi is going to be contested. So doing things over Wi-Fi is going to be really problematic. Using a wireless, a Hollyland, point to point where that you can see the transmitter and the receiver can see each other, less than 100 feet probably will work fine. But I would definitely go towards a Hollyland or a Teradek before I went to anything that uses Wi-Fi. That's going to be because it's not a platform built for that. So,
next question.
From the QR code, Gene J. Anthony in Skokie, Illinois, how do you create your own Companion Unix server? With it being so easy, can you demonstrate it now and show how you get it into the cloud? Really want to be able to do this now that you talked about it as how it's done.
Jonas?
Sure, time me on it. So I actually set up the Ubuntu machine because sometimes AWS takes a little bit. Normally I would SSH in through PuTTY, but since we're doing this kind of speedrun mode, it's gonna just take the console there. There's one command we need to use. We need to make sure that we are the super user, so we have all the permissions that we need. And then Companion provides us with a nice little command. We're going to run that. And now I'm going to tell you that what is really important if you're going to do this is make sure it's secure. It's super easy for people to find open Companion installations. Once or twice a month, I enjoy browsing through all the open Companion systems that we can find on this internet, and just looking at who all is forgetting that we can find that super easily. The other thing is make sure that your security groups are set up well. So what you'll see is that I already have my IP address here. I set it up so only I can access the server. But if you want to share it, I would use something like Cloudflare Zero Access that allows you to share specific ports out and put SSO on, or you can use a VPN. Since you'll probably want to control things in the cloud anyhow, you can use the VPN and then use something like Streamdeck Studio connects directly, or you could use Companion Satellite as well. What you're going to see is that it's going to download a bunch of things. It should almost be ready. And then it runs as a service. The really great thing with this is you just boot it and it's there. We've built a couple little tools that we put on ours that also do websites and everything. But really, it's one command you need to run. I think we're about to be ready. And then you can just access it over the web. It's my favorite thing to just do. It's going to tell you, hey, here's your little command to run it. So we're just going to start it there. I'm going to refresh this page, and we have Companion on the server ready to be set up. I would say it's pretty fast.
Jason?
Jonas, I've done a lot of stuff with Tailscale, but I've never actually tried it on the Companion Pi. Does it work?
Yeah. I mean, Tailscale is a valid version to do that as well, and you can set up a subnet router in AWS as well to do it. And I'll put the command I run in the description.
Quick reminder, you can ask questions 24/7 at askofficehours.global. That's askofficehours.global. Fast and easy. There's no sign up or login, and you can find it at askofficehours.global. Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith in Chautauqua, New York is asking, I worked a virtual gig yesterday with a company that primarily uses Zoom and Wirecast. We used NDI screen capture to bring in two screens with a shared screen and swapped out pinning on another screen. Is this still common to not use integrations?
Ronny?
We used to do it that way. We have stopped doing that workflow for the last year or so. First, when we moved into Zoom ISO, we started using DECLink cards and have everything in physical baseband cables going into the switchers. There are some times when you don't have the time or you don't have the right equipment that's being done in a pinch, but we tend to never use that workflow anymore. That is in Zoom, on Teams and other meeting systems. We tend to use that as a last resort, but try to stay away from that.
Jonas?
I think one reality we have to be aware of is a lot of event professionals don't have time to sit on a Zoom call and learn all of the things while they're still prepping for the events. So a lot of the knowledge is still not out there. Also, with a lot of the initial integrations, there was still a lot of worrisome because there were some app pop-ups. There was a consent flow you had to go through. With Zoom ISO, you had to make, there were all these side effects that you would need to be aware of. Like, oh, yeah, you can use it, but only if your client doesn't have automatic recording enabled. And if you need to do it, you need to click this first, and then your client can do this. And it's going to say it's recording when really it's not recording. Trust us. This is only being live streamed to the room, or it's going to say it's live streamed. That being said, Zoom Rooms now doesn't have those limitations anymore. Zoom Rooms Pro AV is still not fully released, but as soon as that is released, I hope that we'll see most AV companies move away from that approach. But even with that in mind, is if it works, it's not the worst workflow. And one thing to keep in mind as well with screen shares is that right now Zoom Rooms doesn't have a way to give you the active screen share. So if you have a lot of switching and high velocity and you are understaffed, because we have a staffing problem in our industry, and you don't have all your operators, it's much easier to say, hey, just pop the screen share out here, do a screen capture of that, instead of telling them, go to the controller, click it, do it there, and then communicate to the TD that it's ready for them there. So as much as in our world, I would love to say, no, it's no longer, there's no need for that, there's no use case for it. There still are, and there's some, sometimes it's just comes down to them not wanting to get another Zoom subscription with a Zoom Room or get Zoom ISO. So I still see it used all the time.
Alex?
Yeah, I see it. I see other people use it. I kind of feel like I guess it's an opportunity to elevate your production over top of other people because it's way better. Like, I mean, it's like Zoom ISO is significantly better than screen scraping and having debris and all the other things. There's so many things that can go wrong with doing pinning. Pinning farms are something that we really should leave behind. And while we shouldn't make fun of people who use pinning farms, we should be nice about it, but they're silly. And the thing is that what we mostly do when we're talking to folks about it who say we can only use Teams or whatever, we outline the limitations of Teams to a level of, sure, if you want to throw your event into the water, it'll work fine. But there's this we can do it. Here are the limits. And you say it like, this is the limits of what you can do. These are the things that we can do with Zoom. Pretty large companies, including ones that it would be really odd for them to use Zoom for their productions. So it's not that nobody can use Teams, just saying. There's folks that. So anyway, Zoom is dramatically better than all the other options, but only when you're using Zoom ISO or Pro AV. So those are the ones that sets them up completely apart for event production.
Next question.
Jim Brooks in New York, is there a Windows alternative to Zoom ISO? Thanks.
Guy?
Yeah, the alternative would be Zoom Rooms, and shortly, if you can get access Zoom Rooms Pro AV, you could reach out to your account rep. It depends on if you need SDI outs from those. So if you're pulling people in through NDI, Zoom Rooms is really easy. You can have a controller either use the cloud-based controller, which is just logging into the back end of the Zoom site, and you could say launch controller next to that instance. There's also ways that you can use the controller through an exe app that's installed in the applications folder. The other thing is you can use something like vMix with the integration, and with vMix 28, you can actually route around two more outputs. So it depends on how you want to get things in and how you want to get them out. Wirecast also has an integration. So are you trying to pull people into a show, or are you trying to push a show into Zoom? So those are a couple of the integrations on the PC side.
Jonas?
Yeah, like Guy added. No notes.
Next question.
Kenny Hampton in Greenville, Illinois. After learning from office hours, I put to work the Uni HDMI to USB 3 cables, eliminating dongles in a classroom. Computers work great, but a new USB 3 output iPad fails to connect. Possible reasons, please.
Courtney?
Well, usually the reason that it depends on what you're plugging it into. You didn't say what you're plugging that HDMI into, because that could make a difference. If you're plugging it into a projector, let's say for your classroom, a lot of projectors are picky about the EDID, and the iPad isn't a standard aspect ratio. So if your projector is standard 16:9, it may balk at the frame rate or the aspect ratio of the output. The iPad should output whatever's requested from the monitor or projector, but and scale itself to be in a window if you're duplicating that screen. But the best way to deal with this and to check out what's happening is probably to put an MDHX in line from Decimator that our favorite little glue piece, go HDMI in to HDMI out. And that way you can see what that cable is outputting as far as resolution and frame rate. And I find that some monitors can do 4K 30, but they can't do 4K 60. So if the iPad is outputting 4K 60, if you're trying to go 4K or 1080p 60, sometimes it can't even do 1080p 60. So you might have to frame rate convert down to 1080p 30 to get whatever you're plugging into to work with that iPad.
Alexander?
If it's a newer iPad that has USB-C, make sure you didn't buy a third-party aftermarket USB-C to HDMI dongle. Make sure you have the official Apple one. And if you've had that Apple one for a while, you may want to consider buying another one just in case that one is actually failing. I don't know if it's a frame rate issue because usually by default when you output from a computer, it's probably just going to send, they usually default to sending 60 frame rates per second. So if all the other computers are working, by the way, the iPad, what comes out of the iOS device is typically 60. I don't think it can, I'm not sure if it can do other frame rates. In my test, it always came out 60 out of the iOS device. So check the dongle, maybe buy another one and test it. That would be the first thing I would do.
And I know that you had mentioned, Ken, that you have a cable that's a USB-C to HDMI. I use one of those from Anker as well. They tended to have a bigger HDMI port kind of hanging off the end so they can help do that conversion. A couple things that I would check. First of all, does the iPad plug into a different screen with that cable or a different screen with a different chain of signal getting over to the actual screen? Also, when you plug that iPad in with the cable, do you get there should be a little blue icon in the upper right that's letting you know that the iPad thinks it's sending video. And when you go into your settings under display, you'll see that there is an external display that is listed there. If it's not, then there's something that is going on with that handshake that's causing the iPad to not show up on the other screen. Go ahead, Jason.
CJ's mostly got it. I would go to Apple, get the native AV output, and see if you still have a problem, and then return it if you need to. But that's the first place to start. Is to start with a branded one and see if it persists.
And one more comment to Alexander's point: the original USB-C to HDMI adapter from Apple didn't support higher frame rates. So the original USB-C to HDMI only supported 30, and then there's a newer one that supports 60. We've got two new evening shows, just to change topics a little bit. We've got two new evening shows for you to watch live or later. That's Extra Hours on Monday nights at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern. And then on Thursdays, David Paskin's The Rundown is at 6 Pacific, 9 Eastern as well. Next question.
Graham Cardwell in Belfast, Northern Ireland. My 2017 MacBook Pro 16 gig RAM is starting to struggle with Resolve Studio. For much the same money, I can get a new entry-level M4 Mac Mini or a refurbished 2019 i9 MacBook Pro 64 gigs RAM. Which would you choose and why? I'm drawn to the MacBook Pro for mobility.
Alex?
Well, if I needed to actually run well, I'd get the M4. The M4 is so dramatically faster than the laptop, than an i9. It is not, like, I don't know what the numbers are, but it's probably close to 5 or 10 times faster. And there's tons of things that Resolve's adding to the processing that is going to make it harder and harder. If you buy into an i9, they're not paying attention to that anymore. And so they may make it compatible, but there's going to be a lot of features that are just going to grind that laptop to a I've had some experiences recently with i9s, just old ones that I've had that I thought I could take with me to answer email and so on and so forth. And then I was like, oh, I got to render something. The drop off from an i9 from an M1 is just like a long cliff down. so let alone to an M4. Now, I would try to stretch your dollars and get a little bit more RAM than the very base unit, the 16 gigs and maybe 500 gigs of you can get away with 500 gigs of a hard drive if but I would think about getting a little more hard drive and a little more RAM if you can afford it. But either way, I still think even if you had to externalize your storage and put things out, the Mac Mini M4 is going to be dramatically faster than the i9.
Guy?
Yeah, I have an i9 with 32 gigs of RAM, and it's long in the tooth now compared to an M4, even an M2. It's dramatic. The M series silicon is just dramatically faster for exporting, for transcoding, for color correction, all that stuff that Resolve does. It's just night and day. Like Alex was saying, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's at least 5 times. I don't know about 10, but it's just wicked fast. It feels so snappy. Just even moving around the timeline, it's instant because the SSD. And my i9 has an SSD, and that thing just gets hot. Your 2017 MacBook Pro, if you put a dummy dongle, there's a little like $10 USB-C to, actually they probably make USB-C ones now, I haven't seen one, but basically a dongle that would let you run that thing headless. So if you did want to travel with it, you could use something like Splashtop or actually even Mac Screen Share and network into that. So you could take it on the road with you. So there's ways of running that thing headless and taking it and using your 2017 existing MacBook to control it.
Next question.
Zach Stahlsmith in Chautauqua, New York with vMix. Is it possible to have audio from Dante on only certain inputs so when I push walk-in slides to program, I don't have room audio also going out? I know this is possible in Wirecast. Thanks.
Jonas?
Yeah, so what you want to do is be able to have, we have your live shot here, this is just some video, and then you have your slate, and then you have your Dante input here. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that it's still on automatic toggling. And then the trick that you do is you go in here and you go into layers. And then in here, you select your Dante input and you disable it. This makes sure that whatever you change will never affect the video. But look what happens now if I cut to here. You're going to see it being switched off and on. You can, of course, then also do the next step and in your slate, add, I have a little bit of audio there. So now, if I cut to my slate, now I'm on the live. The Dante input is live, but if I cut to my slate, it's gonna take out the Dante input and go in here. The same also works with fade. It's a little thing that we are doing to make sure that you can hook the audio of a different input to the video of the main input, and that's how I would do it.
Next question.
This one is for me. I'm trying to figure out why my Zoom feed direct from my Roland UVC encoder looks different from what I get from Mimolive. Thoughts? And there's a screenshot there.
Alex?
Yeah, I think it's a color space transform that isn't the same, and so it is going to be something that I've already sent it to folks to look at. But it is, there's something going on. They're interpreting the color coming in differently. So it'll be interesting to see what that is. Yeah, and Oliver said, "How did I miss this show? I should be on the panel talking about the NDI in the box system." Anyway, so maybe we'll see if we can get Oliver to take a look at that as well. But I think a couple people need to take a look at it. It's a pretty subtle difference, but it's still there. Definitely more punchy inside of Mimolive than it is coming in from the Roland. Now the Roland, what are you capturing on the Roland? Is that QuickTime or is that what did you capture the Roland image from?
I just took a screenshot on my
From
Mac.
what?
I had Mimolive open.
So the Roland was a Mimolive as well. So these are both a screenshot from Mimolive.
Yeah, that is exactly. So you're seeing the Zoom client inside of Mimolive side by side with the preview of the direct feed going in, and you can see they're very, very different there.
Wait, I'm confused now.
So I'm connected to a Zoom meeting, 1080p Zoom meeting inside of Mimolive. Inside of that Zoom meeting, I look darker and the colors are different. But if I look at the actual raw video coming into the source, different.
What is the raw? What application are you using to look at the raw video?
I'm just looking at Mimolive.
Okay, so both of these this is a screen capture, and both images here are Mimolive.
Yes.
Okay, and so then it's an interpretation between the two. So that's interesting. And when you cut to it, if you cut to it side by side, Have you tried that?
Well, I can't cut to it side by side because one window that you're seeing, the darker one, that's just the Zoom meeting, and then the other one is like how it looks inside of like the switcher inside of Mimo. See what I'm saying?
No, I understand now. Because I thought you were joining. Because it would also be interesting to see if you're opening the Zoom meeting but Mimolive is joining the meeting.
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
and pulling it out.
Yeah.
Because what I would want to see. Can you feed the Roland as a source into Mimolive, as well as to, so you want what I'd like to see is what the Roland looks like inside of Mimo. Like, like what does the image look like directly, rather than through Zoom? Like how is it interpreted directly into it? Because there's a whole bunch of things so to reduce that variable, you would want to know what does the Roland look like inside of Mimo.
Roland to QuickTime and then Roland to Zoom.
No, Roland straight into Mimo as a source. The Roland can be a UVC source, right? So you just say
so that's what you're looking at in that screenshot. So the darker, to be clear, the darker one image of me is inside of the Zoom meeting with the Roland encoder, and then the brighter colored one is what it looks like in the source. Okay,
so this brighter one, this one here is the Roland directly into Mimo, not through Zoom.
That's correct.
Okay.
And by the way, inside, and like today, how I look here, just inside of the Zoom meeting client, looks different as well. So it seems like for some reason inside of Zoom, I look different. In fact, I'm curious if I.
Well, what's funny is that the Zoom one looks better than the direct one into Mimo.
Well,
so
I don't understand why I look so much brighter inside of Mimo. It's just weird. So I'm not sure what. Like if I open QuickTime,
again, this feels like a
QuickTime.
Yeah, this is and Oliver said this is an issue of YUV versus sRGB. So that's what Oliver's saying. So that's the
right.
It's a YUV to sRGB transform. So which we've seen in other places. We'll have to think about how to. Maybe we'll get Oliver on at some point and try to like talk through that and show it. But it's different.
Yeah. So I opened up QuickTime and I look the same that I look in Zoom. So I follow you.
Hopefully we can get Oliver in and we can we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of this. But awesome discussion about it. Next question.
This one's from Alex Lindsay in Nevada, California. I have a wireless two-way camera system update if folks are interested.
Go ahead, Alex.
So I'm working on this slowly but surely.
Oh, that is a monster.
It's smaller. So it's a smaller system. So one of the things that we had in the last one was we had all this stuff sticking out everywhere, and there's a lot. It's hard for you to see, but there's a lot less sticking out. You'll see it here on the side here. So there's 2 teradecks. That's a transmitter and receiver that you can kind of see there, but there's not all the gobbledygook that we had before. I still have to work on some of the wiring. Now, the way we're fixing that is that we're printing holders for some of the transceivers and so on and so forth that are here. So these are going onto the rails, and there's another one for the AJA. So this one is a de-embedder, or that you can see here. This is a de-embedder, Blackmagic de-embedder that de-embeds the video return to us. And then feeds it directly. There's just a loop through right here. Feeds it directly into the IFB transmitter, and so that goes the IFB back to 1 or 2 or 3 people. We have another one. It's not here because we're printing something for it, but we have the AJA 12G that is going to embed the audio back into the return feed, and that's going to embed eventually 4 channels of ambisonic plus 2 channels of mics. Back into this feed that returns it, Sony FX6 that's doing that. And then, so it is, the one at NAB was capable of 1080p stereo. This one, if all works, this will go into a prism, and the teradek prism and the prism will go back to Michigan. If all of this works, it'll be 4K 60 HDR 5.1. So
you're going to poke an eye out with that thing, Alex.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
You need to put little red flags at the end of all those antennas.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, so that's where so that's what we got there. The reason that Mickey was saying that he put this in the back for the embedders and de-embedders, the embedder is in the back. The reason I currently have the audio stuff in the front is because the people are in the front and want the antennas as close as I can to them. So that's why I'm putting them there. And it also has to do with weight. So I have too much weight in the back right now. So putting these in the front balance the camera. So I'm trying to balance the camera as well. So anyway, there you go. There's your little update.
Where's your viewfinder?
There'll be more in the next couple of weeks as we.
So you're going to add a separate monitor for viewfinders or an eyepiece viewfinder?
There's a viewfinder here, and then there's a return monitor here. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. That looks really cool. It's amazing how much we clean that up in a very.
Yeah, we'll as we get closer to it and we do tests, we'll keep on showing it as it evolves. So
my question is, how heavy is it?
It's lighter than the one at NAB.
It's lighter than the one at NAB. I don't know. I haven't weighed it yet. My guess is probably 25 pounds. Something in that range. So,
if you're enjoying Office Hours, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to the channel, of course. But remember, we're also a nonprofit, so you can donate at officehours.global/donate. And if you're interested in volunteering, we've got the new volunteer meeting this Saturday. And for just a few more days, you can get a hold of this tight fit and good-looking Office Hours t-shirt. Just go to officehours.global/shop to check that out. We'd appreciate it. All right, so we're going to talk about production fly packs today, and this is where we've got some folks who have built some really cool kits who are going to share a little bit about what they've built, and then start to answer your question about how we're building these kits. And we've got Ronny Hofsoy, Rion Smith, and then just coming in is Jeff Keithley to share a little bit about what they have. So, Ronny, why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, so basically what we are doing is we are having a lot of conferences. We have board meetings. We are constantly flying in airplanes or traveling with boats or even in cars. And the thing that we are often traveling with an air freight company that has smaller planes than the normal Boeings and the other ones. And we often have to be very limiting in what we bring with us. So we are constantly on the lookout for the most compact kits that we can build and still have a lot of features with us in the suitcases. And lately what we have ended up with is one ME Constellation HD with Streamdeck, 2 MacMinis, and maybe we go for the newer MacMinis. And we have the Allen Heath SQ series audio mixers that we bring with us, which is really, really compact and really advanced. It also has one of the few mixers that we have relatively good preamps on, and also provides us with auto mix and advanced USB interfacing into the MacMinis that are actually streaming. And this is something we are experimenting with now these days, and we have 4 of these kits plus 3 extra, a little bit larger kits. So we have 7 kits in total that we tend to have in suitcases. So this is our kind of journey, and we'll probably be sharing a lot of pictures as we go. And this has been out in the field already, and we're kind of field testing. And as the base of it all, it's running Mimolive as the encoder, and to have stuff coming in and out the NDI feeds, which we also implemented. And everything for the big screen in the venue is done through the ATEM constellation. So that's kind of how we do it nowadays.
Yeah, so you're really balancing how can I build the sort of connectivity and picture that I need, the production quality that I need, but I need it to be mobile and I need it to move. And that's where the whole idea of of production in the cloud, of doing cloud production, is so appealing to many because if you have an internet connection that's reliable, you have the ability to kind of offload some of that hardware lift to a completely different location. Rian, did you have some stuff you wanted to share as well?
Yes, I do. So I'm nowhere near, large as these guys at productions, but I typically do, weddings, funerals, small events at pubs, that sort of thing. So can I show pictures now? Right.
Yeah, sure.
Let me transition.
I know we're trying to keep pretty quick, but we got a little bit of time. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So, right. I think you could see there now. So this is my rack case that I typically travel with, and my trolley for it as well. This is just a look from top down. Let me go. Anyway, so this is my my. Before I start again, I really wanted to thank publicly Mike Latta. You guys may know him. He's the person who would have helped me many an evening, sat down with me on Zoom and went through this whole process. So just wanted to publicly shout them out as well. This is my spooler cable. So like I was telling you earlier, Alex, where it's SDI and Cat6, and they're tied together. And I have it on these like the Costco spools, so I can easily spool them in and out. There's 150 feet of cabling there. Really quickly. This is the back. Right. So this is what the rack looks like to the back this morning. It's a bit messy because I didn't get to finish everything, right? But to put back all the wire in. But the point is, top right, you have your mini router, the switches, middle PoE switch. Below, it's the SDI to HDMI converters, multi 1 to 4 HDMI splitter. Let me go to the front. Right, so this is what it looks like from the front. So firming on top, then you have your Streamdeck mini PC to the right, and then on rails you have the 8MX Stream ISO. Right, so this is what it looks like when it's slid out. One of the main reasons, I saw questions coming up with it later, right? But in terms of power, why we went with the firming on top, so it's, that's your power conditioning, as well as it has the pull out, those little 2 black knobs you can pull out and you get light. So you're in a dark, really dark space. Should you need to see anything, you have that options as well, right? And I think that, yeah, this was the bootleg way of me stopping the case from the shelf from sliding out. So my neighbor was like, "Bro, you have this problem. Just get some styrofoam." He's like, "Let me do it." And he literally came across and solved the problem in 5 minutes, But yeah, so this is my generally the flight pack that I go with. Let me just one more thing. Can I do it? Is it working? No, it's not showing up. I don't think it's showing up. Anyway, never mind.
Yeah.
So
we'll dig into that a little bit more. I'm sure now that we've seen it, that gives us a great kind of starting point to dig in a little bit more for questions on how you have that set up. Jeff, we'll go to you next.
Sure. We've been known to fly a few places. Just actually got back from a little trip to Scotland, complete fly pack that we went in to do a show. We were able to make it travel within technically 8 bags, 9-ish, carry-ons were full. We also had 6 very large suitcases in cases with cameras and all that stuff too. But this was all over commercial airlines, no cargo. We were able to do it under checked luggage, checked baggage, which was challenging because media rate, by the way, going international, it's now 70 pounds on United, not 100. So there was a little mad scramble at the last minute because we were 72 pounds on 2 cases, 72 pounds. So we looked like the Michelin Man with a whole bunch of cables strewn over our shoulders as we boarded the plane. Because a 50-foot SDI cable weighs exactly 1.2 pounds. And we just kept adding them onto our shoulders until we had it all in our either our carry-on bags or in everything. So sometimes you do what you got to do.
That just made everybody else on the flight feel really good when you guys walked in with just cables.
Anybody that's ever behind us in TSA or security lines and stuff, they're always shaking their heads. because they're, especially TSA, even as pre-check, they're like, oh yeah, take out your computer. So it's like, I have 9 computers in my bag alone, and they look at me like I'm nuts. I'm like, you doubt me? Okay, let's go. So keep giving me trays. It's like 1 computer per tray. Okay, well that's, I need 9 trays. They're like, what? And so yeah. Anyway, that's always a hassle. Say it that way. Leave a lot of time. But our flight packs have evolved quite a bit. We've really worked out. Up until this last trip, I was really a fan of these aluminum cases that we moved to, and I'm still a fan of them because they're lightweight. They're a suitcase size, so a large suitcase size. It latches. It has TSA-approved latches, and it actually does have a nice close, better than just a suitcase that zips up. I found that the zippers were failing after a period of multiple trips. So these aluminum cases were a bit more expensive, as expensive as without a doubt as a Pelican. But the problem with the Pelican or SKB or those type cases, and Ronnie, I know you know the same thing, is you give up 25, 30 pounds right there. So no matter how big it is, it doesn't matter because you can only put X amount into it before you're overweight. And I'm overweight a lot. So in many ways. So I want to try to minimize that down as much as possible so I can get more gear in the amount of space. The same size silver aluminum case that we're carrying is like 10 pounds versus 25 or 30. So that is a huge difference in how much gear we can put into it. And they did really well up until this last trip. We had a wheel get shaved off of it. So I'm now 3-wheeling on one of them and 4 on the others. And we'll find out if the lifetime warranty is really a lifetime warranty. But my new favorite, I guess you would say, as far as flight case builds is, this little guy here. He's it. That's all I need. This and a camera. Or 4 cameras, whatever. Keeping it lightweight and not bringing all the switching gear like you mentioned earlier, CJ, as we transition to the cloud and all. Not bringing all that switching gear with us, not bringing all the terminal gear. It's a change. It's a huge change, and in many ways, a big benefit. So that's our approach to lightening the load and trying to be as compact as possible. We have got some other toys to show too as we go along with some other questions.
Go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah, just to add on what Jeff just said about the boxes and prevent the packaging to become the kind of major weight factor in the kit. We actually found a new vendor or new products from actually a Norwegian vendor for what it's worth, which is called ProTour Systems, that has developed a very lightweight aluminum, very flexible both in depth and height in units, and it also have in most of the systems of the ProTour systems, they also have vibration dampening in the handle and the front and in the back. So it's a really flexible and really, really lightweight. And these boxes, we are starting to look into which one of those we can fit the most equipment in. And those are going to be the major kind of boxing of everything. And then we probably have to 3D print something for the MacMinis, etc. And we also want to have space for adding displays, extra displays inside this as well. So all these boxes that ProTour Systems is providing also fits into standard Pelican cases or the Pelican Airs or similar. And the weight overhead is getting smaller and smaller almost every month from their very, very potent developers that are actually developing these systems. So we're looking forward to add those to the inventory as well.
Alexander, let's get into the first question.
Our first one's from Eduardo Augustine in Panama City. How can I improve my fly kit? Has an extreme ISO 1 Mac Mini 2014, Streamdeck XL, portable display, and Teltonika router. I have a power strip inside, but devices get disconnected when traveling. Suggestion.
Go ahead, Rian.
like I was saying earlier, having something that's stable, like the firming, that has definitely been a help for me. Like, I've never had a plug jump out, and trust me, my case has even fell once out of my hand. Firming for power, clean power, never an issue. Zip ties are your friend, and I think even more would be the strong Velcro that has the sticky sides. That's like really, really, really good for using in the fly cases.
Another thing that you can take a look at is Furman actually makes a power strip that has a locking component to it. So this is what I was able to bring up briefly, where you essentially have a set screw that allows this to kind of squeeze in, and what that'll do is just prevent things from breaking or from as you're going down a highway or traveling, those plugs from jostling out. The other thing that I would mention is take a look into what products that are designed. If you're looking for a more affordable solution, take a look into what folks have designed for the RV industry, because there's literally a whole very enthusiastic community of people who have to make sure that things are plugged in and stay connected as you're traveling down the highway. Ronny, you had something that you wanted to throw in there?
Yeah, what we are doing in the new racks is to actually have one major power supply that actually supplies power to all the gadgets inside the box. So we get rid of all the plug-in powers that normally comes with the equipment. So we have one master, and we just have different voltages in that master power supply. So there's only one cable, and everything else is screwed down inside in the power supply itself.
And then I think the only other thing that that I had thought of is that I've also seen some people do. It's not a. I've seen PowerCon where they'll actually put like a little locking connector around just your Edison, but I've also seen those. Either the IEC C13 or C19s where they have a little locking mechanism to make sure that things don't pop out. So if you're able to get some sort of distribution unit, then we'll pull those back in there. Jeff, you had something you wanted to throw in?
Yeah, regarding I just was in an international situation. C13, C14s, the IEC connector or whatever we don't want to call it today, those are invaluable if you're flipping between US voltage and also international voltage. That's 220 and stuff. We were in Scotland, and we completely ran out every time of adapters just to be able to go from that crazy big UK plug to small, actually efficient plugs that we use in the US. Yes, I know there may be somebody listening in the UK, but I'll say it. Your plugs are crazy big, and they take up way too much space on a power strip. So we had a lot of those adapters. I started moving over some of our stuff, like our racks. We started moving to the PDUs, or the power distribution units, that are C13, C14, and then the cables themselves are not going from a C13 into a standard US 110 Edison. Those have made a big difference in how compact we can make our racks. And I would also suggest that, to Eduardo's question, is maybe look into that for those items you can. The problem you get into is the low voltage stuff. So if you're using like smaller converters, throw down boxes, things like that need 5 volts, 12 volts, they make power supplies for those also. Or you can make your own, which is what we did. So we take a 110 power supply where it's dual voltage, you do 110, 220, and then it dumbs it down to 5 volts or 12 volts, and then we power that into each one of the plugs. No matter what, be prepared. And in the almost 40 years of me doing these kind of builds and racks and such, be prepared that you will have to reseat something. So don't over-engineer that everything is down and super tight and glued and everything like that. Just be prepared that sooner or later you probably will need to get into that rack. So try to make it a little easier for you to work on it if you can.
Go ahead, Ronny.
Yeah, one other way to fix the main power problem, is to start using power cons. So what you can do is you just have one cable with the power con in one end, and that's the main power into the first rack, and then you can daisy chain out from the first rack to the second, to the third, and that has to do with modularity. So if you need 2 extra screens on top of something, you just daisy chain the power from one into the other, and you just need to have one main power lead going from the wall receptacle or the distribution that you have. So that way you can easily add on to extra units, and you also have like these blocks with power cons that can add up to 6 or maybe 8 or even 24. So you can just grow your number of outputs as you go. So that's the one flexible way we are doing it for the main power.
And go ahead, Rion.
Yeah, so I just wanted to get Ronny and Jeff's ideas on this as well. So if we have one main power supply, like you were saying, right, Ronny, wouldn't that also be a single point of failure? Is it that you guys who are in these mission critical situations, do you guys work with a backup that you have in a case that you could maybe swap out, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, if you lose power, you lose power. So if you're going to have redundancy, that's kind of another thing, but it's easily done if you have the redundancy done in the step between the wall or your rack, and add the USB into that equation is the way to do it. But if I lose power on my main kind of feed into where I'm sitting, I'm kind of out of power anyway. So it has to do with a lot of stuff. But there are also differences around the globe. Some areas have more stable power, others have bigger troubles. But I think a USB or battery powered thing in between here is one of the easiest solutions to apply.
Next question.
Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I'm building out a VIVO monitor stand with 2 32-inch monitors, one 22 monitor flipped 90 degrees, and a MacMini mounted behind one of the 32-inch monitors. This will live on top of my audio rack. What is a good way to secure it?
Go ahead, Guy.
Is he trying to secure the MacMini? If so, there's these brackets like this that'll mount to a 75-inch VESA, and it'll mount behind securely, and you can even throw a lock on it. I'm not sure if he's trying to do something like that, or if he's trying to mount the VESA mounts of a consumer type TV to a rack. If so, we use all kinds of Noga arms and have some triad orbit things that can mount 75-inch, and then we've got these crazy adapters that allow you to swivel and then clamp. So those are worth looking at. Triad orbit has a ton of stuff for mounting and swiveling.
Yeah, and I think those VIVO monitor stands are very similar to those, like those Huano arms that Alex has mentioned in the past, those little gas spring arms. So you don't want to compromise the integrity of that audio rack by drilling into it or anything. So you may want to consider building some sort of structure around it, and somehow if you need something that's going to have that C clamp, because a lot of times the racks, in the interest of being lightweight, you just have sheet metal on the outside, and that's not going to be able to take all of the weight of those. 2 32 inches and a 22-inch monitor going back and forth is going to put a lot of stress on that. You might end up bending. But I am going to second Guy's suggestion on the MacMini mount. I've got a few of those, and sometimes I mount it to the back of a screen. Sometimes I'll mount it to the wall of a case, or to the wall behind a desk or under the desk. It's amazing when you disconnect your brain from the idea of, okay, this needs to live on a desk. It's kind of freeing. Next question.
Eduardo Augustine in Panama City is asking, how can I implement audio into Flykit without breaking the bank? Connected to an extreme ISO, I've been using a Beringher mixer outside on the side and audio into camera, a small mixer to install inside.
Go ahead, Ronny.
Well, we've fallen in love with Allen Heath SQ series, the CQ series, which I shown earlier in the program. And it's kind of weird because these mixers are so powerful, and we have the Beringher Flow 8 as well, and this has totally replaced the entire Flow 8 system that we have been using. And they are so compact. They're a little bit heavy. There are really rugged build quality on these, and one of the things that we are really loving with this is the pretty advanced preamps and processing, and not to forget to mention the auto mix that is also very powerful in this. And of course, you can control it through MIDI. It has a network connection, so we put it into the network, and you can also control it via BitFocus Companion through the media interface, and it also has a very powerful multi-channel USB connection into the computer as well. So this is they have different models of this, so just check out the CQ series. They can also be remotely controlled by the app, their original apps, etc.
Jeff?
Okay, so I tend to have a way of overdoing things a little bit. So this is a little baby now. This guy, and it is heavier. I'm putting it on my shoulder because it is heavy. MacMini 64-channel audio mixer. Dual. This one is a primary and a backup for symmetrics. These are DSPs. They're called, some of them, the older ones are Radiuses. This is the Prism series. So it does have analog in and out. And then my baby switch at the bottom, which is a Netgear 12-port 10-gig switch. 3U. And the little rack is a specially designed, as you can see, it's got all the holes that are D's. So these are all D mounts. So if I wanted to put hardware into it, and in the backside, these are the connections that are going into the actual mixing portion, which is the DSP. All that rides in this one air case, which is a carry-on. So I basically can bring 128 channels of Dante mixing with me in one case that's just a carry-on. So it depends on what your needs are. We are running most of our mixing now, of course, cloud related, is going through Llama Mix and also Waves MX. So recently just used Waves MX to do a show that was 5,000 miles away. So it depends on how fast and how much audio you need. The little small DSPs, we're using those to do our mix minuses and do all our comms manipulation whenever we're on site, and the MacMini is carrying audio back and forth with Unity Connect also. So it depends on what your needs are, but we're moving quickly to where it's just software based, not hardware based anymore.
Chris?
You know, Jeff, you mentioned it fits in a carry-on, and I'm not making any statement about any people, but I know people that buy 2 seats just for comfort, literally just for comfort. Do you know, on a planes, does anybody know if you pay for 2 tickets, does that mean I get to carry on twice as much carry-on luggage?
No, you
really?
They will. We just ran into this. So I was carrying Jarrett, my son, which he's a little guy, right?
He's a full-size man.
So he had a blue porta-brace, standard camera case that you've seen in news for decades, right?
Yeah.
So we had that with 3 cameras inside it, our smaller cameras. And so it's a little bit bigger, and it doesn't fit in a carry-on. So going over from Newark, very not nice people at the gate were like, no, you have to check that. You have to check that. You have to check. It's like, well, I'm not going to check that because this is a carry-on. Well, then you have to check the other bag. So I had to check his roller, and we were both in first class. So it did not matter. They were not going to waver. On the way back, oh yeah, bring it all on. It doesn't matter. So
yeah, I had an incident leaving. I think it was Comdex back in the 80s with a Ikegami in a porta-brace bag, and the woman said, you can't take it on. I said, I was actually on this same plane. It fits just fine. She goes, no, you have to check it. I said,
yep,
lady, there's an $80,000 camera in here. There's no way in hell I'm checking this bag. And luckily, the producer, who was much more level-headed than me, stepped between me and the gate lady, and he said, "Take the camera out of the bag." So I took the camera out of the bag, I handed her an empty bag, and I just cradled this Ikegami and I carried it down the aisle of the plane.
I have done exactly the same thing with the TriCaster in the past.
Give me your jacket, give me your sweatshirt, give me your...
Okay, I'll just carry it with myself. And here I am, like a baby. Here you go.
Yep.
Yeah, agreed.
Next question.
Okan Fours in Stockholm, Sweden is asking, looking for recommendations for rapid setup Rode case for our commentators. We have 15-inch laptop, Streamdeck XL, RodeCasterPro, 2 headsets, a small table, 10G network switch.
Go ahead, Jeff.
So this has always been exactly a goal of mine, and it's been an ongoing issue. I have built cases where it's just a Pelican. It's like the size of a briefcase. You flip up the lid, have the monitor inside. You got the comm boxes inside. Immediately, my commentators start taking stuff out. So I've given up on that. And mostly it's because they want to have as much space on the table as possible. So we have smaller Dante boxes, Model 204s, 205s. That's our commentator boxes. And then we need somewhere for it to go well. So Chris is showing something that he and I have started using more too, is Kaizen foam. You can buy it on Amazon. It is amazing. You don't have to pay an overpriced water jet to come and cut it, but you can actually do the tracing, and then you cut out the foam, and then you have a place that you could put all the stuff, and it doesn't move around. It stays intact, and it's way better than pick and pluck foam. The first thing you should do if you buy a case from Pelican or SKB with a pick and pluck foam is take the pick and pluck foam and throw it away. Just throw it away. Get rid of it. Buy this Kaizen foam. It's not that expensive. Put this inside it and then cut out to exactly what your needs are. And you can get it at different heights, different densities even for that matter, but it has layers. So it's so much easier to peel and cut and make the space work for what your gear is you're carrying. So I highly, highly recommend that. Thank you, Chris, for the support.
Good, Ronnie.
Yeah, I totally agree with Jeff on this one. So there are 3 different ways of looking at this. Bring it in your backpack together in a plastic bag. The second is what Jeff is talking about, and that's based on experience where the people using this equipment would like to reorganize how the layout is. Either it's on the table or if it's in front of them or on the side table, etc. And the third one is, of course, to have everything mounted and just open the lid and you're ready to go. So it really depends on the situation. Most of the times we also tend to have the second option where everything is stored safely inside a Pelican or similar using pre-cut and it's safe, it's stored safely inside it, and nothing can get destroyed unless you really try to destroy it. And then you have to connect, of course, everything when you are unpacking. So you have to choose.
Go ahead, Rian.
Yeah, so let me share my screen. Right. So this is one example. The SKB injection molded cases. They have a spot on top for the laptop itself. So when you close the lid, let me see. Where is it? Oh, they're not showing the cover. Oh, right. So it's a rolling case, rack case, as well. When you take off the top, you get where you can kind of have the laptop set in place all the time. And then you have, in this version, you have 4U. So what I would suggest, probably you have on the base, you put like a sliding shelf. And then probably 2U up, you have a flat shelf where you can mount the specific stuff and have it tied down inside of there. And then this way, you could probably put power to the back, even have a panel. That's the next step for my case as well, would be to have all the back with a panel where it's just to patch stuff in. So you'll just have a bag with cables, and then this as your main thing that you could just roll up with, put on top of a table, and they're ready in 5 seconds, you know?
Jason?
Yeah, +1 on the Kaizen foam. I kind of always have it. And if you are extremely clumsy like me when it comes to trying to trace it well, I have a laser marker that I use to very quickly, get the lines and get the carve outs just perfect, and that works much better for me.
Next question.
Tommy Johnson, St. Paul, Minnesota. How has NDI changed your remote workflow in the last year?
Well, NDI hasn't changed my remote workflow in the last year, but I'm sure Jeff has something to say.
It's not changed in the last year. We've been using it for over a decade now, and in many variations. It's completely reworked our cloud infrastructure. I mean, it's what makes it possible, honestly. So we do quite a bit of it in the cloud, and in the local facilities, in local on-prem, NDI definitely affects how much SDI cable you have to run. You can cut it down. There's a big part of that of what we did just recently in Aberdeen is we brought in just a few SDI cables. Of course, we ended up having to get more, but that's how it always goes. There's other add-ons and things like that affect it, but we're much more, I guess you would say, flexible in being able to meet the needs of our clients in those last-minute, oh, by the way, requests. So those are definitely ways we've seen NDI. So if, we need a monitor over there. Okay, is there a network there? If not, it's easy enough to get network to it. We drop a little Magewell decoder that's NDI to SDI or HDMI decoder right there. So that alone makes it easier. With NDI also, another thing that really in the last couple of years that made a difference in our on-prem stuff is we don't always bring our cables with us, our Cat5 cables. Cat5 is super cheap. We build our own or we buy what we need. A couple of times we went up to do fly packs in Canada. I just called up got on Amazon and ordered a couple boxes at a couple thousand feet. And when we were done, we walked away. That was it. We just left whatever was there because it was more cost effective to do that than to bring 2,000 feet of Cat5 from Texas.
Next question.
Andre Dole in Berlin. Ronny, what specific power supply are you using that provides different voltages for your devices in the packs?
Ronny.
I was just waiting for that question. It's a Finnish company with companies or offices around the world. They are called Enedo Power, ENEDO power.com. And I'll drop the link in the Mokana chat so you can see. The one we are using or configuring is one with I think it's 600 watts maximum power, and there are 8 configurable outputs with plug-in modules that you can configure. So whatever your heart wants.
And Rion.
Yeah, just thinking about, there's a bootleg way to do this as well. Computer power supplies have 12-volt rails and 5 volts. So once you check the pin out for the 24-pin, you could just cut to suit and make sure that you have a switch that you could use to turn it on and off. Yeah, simple enough. As well, one more thing, there are some mini PC power supply units too that are like really small. They're like the size of a large matchbox. Those also have the wires with multiple voltages coming out of them already. So those are 2 options you could try.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael's asking, have you ever built custom I/O panels for fly packs?
Jason?
Oh, so many times. For many, many years, yeah. This is taken out and put into a rack, but yes, the Keystone jacks. I'm getting shivers like looking at my own work. Not in a good way. I found that it's better to use umbilicals between the two, have them preset. That way you're just eliminating an entire rack worth of points of failure.
Guy?
Yeah, I've been helping John Nielsen and Oliver build out these. These are they're calling them the NDI in a box. And basically, if you go to redco.com, you can have them design and even print the little letters and everything for you. So if you don't want to deal with a lot of the stuff, you can design it. Or if you want somebody else to be able to customize one, maybe they need to change out just SDI or something like that on a couple ports, then this is a company worth checking out. It's called redco.com, and I'll put a link in the chat.
Next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. If you must roll your packs, do you have a preference on wheels or a suspension design to protect the gear? And what damage have you had to repair on site due to rough handling?
Go ahead, Ronny.
Crossing my fingers and hope that will never happen, but it all has to do with pre-planning, and we tend to use Pelican cases with built-in wheels, or if we are on bigger productions, we always use flight cases and bring them in on wheels. And those are solid flight cases built for trucks, etc. So select a suitable sized flight case for what you are going to transport, and if you go with Pelican, make sure it has wheels and a handle on it.
And Jeff?
Well, we had a small rack that we just recently installed in one of our flight packs. The small rack had 9 Dells, 2 UPSs that weighed right about 120 pounds each. And then let's see what else. And then switches, router, all said and done, right around 1,200 pounds. If it was all said and done when it was built. The rack itself was 300 pounds to start with. So and this was going into our something I'm alluding to that's going to be coming up shortly that will show our new flight pack. It's inside that flight pack. And that rack was going to be on a truck most of its life as it was moving around the country or across the country, above the country. And because of that, we designed an air suspension system to go underneath it. So the same airbags that you would put underneath a truck or van or to give it more suspension, we built, my son and I designed it, and it's mostly him, designed it. And so it rides on these airbags that can hold up to 1,500 pounds a piece. And so it just floats on air. So that was our solution because I wasn't aware whether or not it was going to be on an air ride trailer. That's the new flight packs there. So that's one of them flying under the trailer right now. And that's where I was worried about, if it's bouncing down the road, it's just one thing after another is going to fail eventually. It's not a matter of if, it's just when. So we wanted to try to eliminate that as much as possible. So even if the truck has air ride on it, our rack it's on independent air ride. And so it's a managed system fed off of 12 volts, and it actually automatically air itself up as time goes on. So as it's riding down the road, it maintains a certain, I guess I should say, cushioning. So that was our solution to really protect them. And we had a lot of money riding on this show, so I wanted to make sure things ran fine.
Gotta get that IP, bro. Gotta make sure I get that IP.
Go ahead, Jason.
Jeff, I'm waiting for the day when you're just like, I just decided that I started to need a C-130, to load my world's largest fly pack onto a plane.
It's funny you should mention that, but I know a guy that has those planes.
Of course you do.
Bigger
of course you do.
It's the big Russian one, the Antonov, I believe is how it's pronounced. But yeah, he has 12 of them, and that's what he does. So if I ever get to that point where I need to ship the whole bus, and somebody can afford the millions of dollars, literally millions of dollars it takes to move it, okay, I got the guy.
Jeff, I think you should go and check the Guinness World Book of Records, the largest flight pack.
I mean, it was in the air. It's a flight pack. It was not on the ground. I think it counts. Yeah. Next question.
Okan Fors in Stockholm, Sweden is asking recommendations for mobile antenna pole solution that can be mounted on a case or on a rock and roller trolley.
All right, go ahead, Jason.
We really need to know how high you need to go here. My first thought was, the telescoping, like the old style news van, kind of just telescoping straight up little poles. Really depends on how high you need to go.
The other thing that I would look at is with the prevalence of Starlink, and again, I'm going to go back to the RV and the boater communities, you can get a lot of pretty innovative solutions on how to take something up and put it down quickly without a lot of weight and without a lot of setup. I mounted one on a building recently and was shocked at the variety of options that I had when I was trying to figure out how do I make this thing get up in the air. Go ahead, Ronny.
I was thinking a little bit more creative. One of the things that we are doing when we are bringing our wireless microphones and in-ears is we have these paddle antennas, and all those can fit on top of a microphone stand. And when you are traveling by airplane or whatever, you tend to not bring your microphone stands because they are easily accessible where you actually land your plane and start to do your venue and unpack. So I would look for something that actually was possible to just put on top of a microphone stand, even acquire mix stand to have it really high up in the air.
Next question.
Tommy Shanson, St. Paul, Minnesota. Do you pack monitors or do you rent them?
Go ahead, Jeff.
I'll tell you what, this is like one of the bane of my existence is moving monitors around the world. I bought a lot. I've sold a lot. I bought more and then rented more. And you never have one thing you never have. You never have enough, and you never have enough that work whenever you're there. Because we were moving this box up. We had one that just showed up. It worked fine here. All 5 monitors across the MCR worked great. And we got there and they didn't work. Took it apart. Wasn't able to fix it. And had to end up buying a monitor. So we bought one. And then the client comes up and goes, oh, well, we want to have one over there too and one over there. Didn't we tell you? And of course, we bought 2 more. And then now I've got these cheap little TCL monitors sitting around and just more of them. When we were moving a lot of stuff up and down into Canada, we found that it was actually cheaper because of then at the time it was really hard to pack and the monitors were a little bit heavier and harder to pack. It was cheaper to buy them. So we just bought them. And many times if we had local help, we would just give them to them when we would walk away. I tried to give these away that I had these 40-inch TCLs, and they told me, no, it's too small. They didn't want it. So I was like, okay. First world problems, I guess, in many ways. One monitor that I found that I bought this on Amazon just to try it out for a flight pack is this little CTEK monitor. As you can see, it's small. It's only, I think, 15 and a half. But one of the cool things about it is it actually has 4 inputs. So it was made specifically targeted at the ATEM market. So any of you guys out there that are using ATEMs, I don't, but that was something that they were targeting. So it has a loop through on HDMIs. And the idea is it'll do a full quad. So you just press the button and it gives you the quad output, 2x2. And this little monitor has been invaluable for us in our flight packs. It's small enough, light enough. You could even throw it in a backpack if you wanted to. And that's what we're using a lot for just confidence monitoring of like 4 computers in a rack. It works great for that. So
Jeff, is that 1 RU? Is that like, what's the width on that?
Oh yeah, it'll fall within that. It's a 15.6 monitor, so it'll definitely fall in there. Yeah, but it has little desktop stands. As you can see, we took off the bottom as a base. We took those off, so then these are 1/4-20s, and so we just unthread everything and then just transport it like that. And it usually stays up on the desk anyway, and it's not being moved around, so it's fine. But it's plasticky, really lightweight. But I don't cry if this one breaks.
Is it expensive though to have compared to a regular one?
$300, $350 maybe at most.
Really? Can you post a link? I would love to check it out.
CTEK. Look up an SEETEC. That's the one. And Field World is kind of the same company or copies of it, so you can check Field World also. They're on Amazon's.
Go ahead, Ronny.
Yeah, we have several of those types. Not exactly the same model. We tend to go for the rack mountable. It's a little bit more heavy, it's a little bit more rugged built, and it doesn't have the quad up. So you can choose between HDMI input and SDI input. I think it's 3G maximum. So it's 1080, and it has different functions. But the most important thing is that it's stored inside a rack, like a computer rack monitor. Just pull it out and flip it up, and you're ready to go. So if you are not that weight, so looking into the weight of this type of things, you could definitely look at that. We've been using them for years, and they are very stable and rugged. Just make sure you take care of the power plug in the back of it. And as to the actual question, if we pack monitors or rent them, it depends. Mostly about the size for where we are going and how we travel. Of course, it's not functional to bring a 42-inch monitor on an airplane, so we tend to rent those. Are we driving locally with our own cars or trucks? We bring our LG Quad 42 inches as our master displays, and we can put in everything from previews to PowerPoints, etc., or one or two or three of the outputs from the MacMinis in the rack, and we can juggle that around. And those monitors are really being kind of our go-to monitor for every production we do nowadays, at least for where we have AV productions or cameras. And bigger displays like 55 inches or confidence screens, etc., or bigger things that are going up on pedestals to be displaying information, we tend to rent locally where we end up.
Next question.
Kay Graham asks, I'm using Zoom to show participants, but would like to switch on one of the two Insta360 links they have set up. How can I control or switch?
Good guy.
In the meeting settings, if you mean control the camera, there is a option to allow for request camera control, and then you can right-click on that Zoom participant, and if they have something like a PTZ camera, like an Insta360 link, you can have them approve the camera control, and now you'll be able to zoom in and then pan and tilt. If you have a Zoom room, you can do multiples of these, and there is a setting in there where you can say automatically accept far-end control, and that way somebody can do the request, and you don't even have to be there to accept the request. It'll just go ahead and pop them in automatically. So if that's what you mean, that's how you do it.
Next question.
Douglas Carmichael, I like the SKB Studio Flyer rack cases. Could you use a 16-inch MacBook Pro with them?
Good, Rian.
Right. So I was just double checking. For the case, it says it has a laptop working surface area of 21 inches by 15.5, right? And if I'm not mistaken, the MacBook Pro is only 14 inches wide, 9 inches deep. So yeah, it should be able to, because as far as I understand, those 4 mounts can be adjusted to wherever you want it. So probably could even take a 19-inch laptop if there's such a thing.
Jason.
Yeah, Rian's absolutely correct. You could put the largest MacBook Pro ever made easily on that top thing. One thought about SKB, I really like their creativity. They are more flexible, and they end up turning out more cool stuff than Pelican. But inch for the same size, I find that they are significantly heavier than Pelican Air. If you don't mind that, they are just fine.
And Guy.
Yeah, Gator also makes a version that I know will fit a larger laptop, but it's not the same kind of ecosystem where you can pull it out. If you want one where you can pull it out, at Infocom this year, we discovered this brand called Fiasco cases, and thicker poly substrate, I think was what it's called. And so they're more rugged, and then this is balsa wood for the rack build, and it's super light, but it's still sturdy. And then you can put a 16-inch on top. They put like a piece of it's not that Kaizen foam, but something similar that's molded for a MacBook specifically. And he showed it to us at Infocom, where he puts his 16-inch inside of there. So it was pretty cool to see this thing and discover a cool rack.
Balsa wood, known for its durability.
You do not mean balsa wood, right?
Maybe I'm incorrect on that. Now I got Chris Fenwick in here with the woodworking master. I thought that it was balsa, but it's
birch. The beloved
go back down.
Trash wood, known for its ruggedness and durability.
Those little airplanes that you make, you snap them together and they fly off.
The things in engineering or physics class that you made bridges out of, But
nonetheless, it's a light wood. Now, I've got like 2 more minutes here, Jeff. Can I see another pic of that floating rack? Because,
right,
that's just so
rack,
cool.
I've been hit with a bunch of direct messages already about our rack. So I have a picture of it, not floating, but I have a picture of it that I sent to my graphics guy. He's got it up now. That's the load. So it gives you an idea of the weight in it. It literally is like right at, I couldn't measure it because my scales wouldn't go that high. So I had to do math, and that was hard. But we were able to get it basically estimated somewhere around 1,200 to 1,300 pounds before cabling even. But so there's quite a bit in there. As you can see, 4 CCUs. The big Dell at the bottom is a big heavy server, and then our Dell 3930s on top of that. And then the real weight is definitely the UPS is in the bottom. There's 2 circuits there. Everything in this whole production pack. So one of those containers is our MCR. In the 20-foot container, everything is behind the UPSs. And there's also a new power system that I will detail on a different show that is actually fully backed up for the whole building, the whole structure that we're carrying. That will run it for a day, literally day and a half is what we factor it at. So we will talk about that power situation a little later because that's not really the focus today. But that's what we had in our rack that floats, sort of.
That's so stinking cool. Okay. This was such a fun day. Thank you, everyone, for being here. Thank you to the panel for bringing your awesome stories from the field and for sharing the pictures and your experience. None of us is as smart as all of us together, and there's days like today where I walk away feeling so much smarter than I walked in, and I feel so enriched. It's just our ability to solve problems when we bring this kind of brain power together is really amazing. Also to the crew, there's a small village that lights up all over the world, makes this show run. We've got volunteers working not only during the show, but also asynchronously to keep us organized and keep us moving forward. If you'd like to find out about the best way to contribute there and join that team, you can go to officehours.global/volunteer, and we have our new volunteer meeting after the show tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And finally, thanks to the producers for asking such great questions. It's a really short show without you, and it's not only just your questions, but also you can support us if you'd like to by going to officehours.global/donate. And don't forget, that limited edition t-shirt is available for just a few more days. The Tlaloc traversal today, 76,000 miles. That's 122,000 kilometers. And that is 602 million bananas for scale. We'll see you in After Hours.
Good show.
Bringing you
Thanks,
all
everybody.
of your potassium.
Thank you, graphics guy.
The graphics guy.
What kind of wood is it? Are you talking about like particle board?
I'm going to go eat some balsa wood.
I'm going back there now and rewatching the video to figure out what kind of wood that is.
I'm telling you,
because it doesn't say on the website.
It's a multi-ply birch. That's
got to be birch.
Oh,
Baltic birch.
Get birch. Okay, obviously.
So birch is that
balsa
strong.
wood is about as durable as like 4 McDonald's napkins glued together.
Yeah,
I remember my little airplanes
styrofoam
that I used to make. Those little like 25-cent ones, so you could balsa wood plates.
We do that as giveaways for at big open houses when little kids are there. We hand them out as anyway.
This Baltic birch used to be $45 a sheet in a 4x8 sheet, 1/2 inch, before